Hello. So I decided to make a game with text only. That's it, that's the intro. I decided on a combat game between letters of the alphabet, where each one has its unique abilities. So I went ahead and created the project, and the first thing I did was creating a square, breaking the rules on the first step. Now listen, this is just a background. Unless you'd rather stare at this instead for the whole time, I think we both would prefer to keep silent about this. I started by making a floor. I did that by typing a bunch of dashes, then a bunch of G's, which I removed later because that hurts my eyes. Now I had to make the movement system. Having the characters simply walk like a person sounded lame and it made no sense. So I thought of this. Why not put each character in the letter Q? The Q can roll around to move. It does that by using its tail as a propeller. That's a tail. So I started making the Q, but the default font wasn't circular enough. So I went to Google Fonts and got this instead. Now we got the Q. Except it's not moving. After some magical engineering, now it is moving. Ignore this. I also gave it the ability to freeze its rotation, so you can use the propeller to kind of fly in the air. Now I can start making the characters. For the player, at first I thought of the letter E, since it appears literally everywhere. But then I realized that appearing everywhere makes it more of an NPC really. So instead, I went for the letter F, which is also the name of the project now. And here it is. You can now move with the Q and aim with the F. As you know, the Q's tail acts like a turbine, so we need to draw the flames that the turbine shoots out. But obviously we can't draw actual flames, since this is a text-only game. First, I tried drawing the general shape. Looking at this, you probably understand now why I picked a challenge that clearly avoids art. I settled on whatever this is, and started painting the word push on top of it. I made 2 frames of this, and here it is in action. You can't see the words from here, but that's probably a good thing. Now that the pushing is finished, we gotta start with the pulling. Wait, Bob. For the pull, I went for a claw looking shape. I went with the same process as the pull. 2 frames outlining the words, and here's the result. Now it's time for the combat. For now I'm gonna keep it simple and just have a melee and a range attack for each character. For the F, I wanted to use this hole to make a flamethrower out of, which would be the range attack. And the flame follows the same process. General shape, painting words, 2 frames, and outlining. I added this cooldown timer over here to show you how long the flamethrower needs to recharge. And after installing everything and adding a test dummy, which is the letter E, here's the result. Also, I just realized all the art was going right to left when it was supposed to go left to right. So I had to flip everything upside down. With the ranged attack finished, it was time for the melee one. For that, I settled on a small F that is used to stab an enemy. It's like a dagger on a tail. A dagger on a tail. Man, this looks bad. Anyways, after performing all the magic, here it is. After you perform a successful attack, you get shot back the opposite way. Now that we're done with the player, it's time to deal with the enemy. First, I coded the movement, which is literally just moving in your direction. Also, I changed the enemy from E to U for absolutely no specific reason whatsoever. Now for the attacks. Since the U looks like a magnet, I just decided on a magnet attack for long range. I drew that by typing a U, 2 C's and 2 I's. And again, it's done in 2 frames. And honestly, the result doesn't even look like it's been typed. With the attack, you get pulled towards the enemy. And when you're close enough, you get damaged. But if you manage to damage the enemy before getting too close, then the magnet gets cancelled. If you're wondering why their colors keep changing, it's to indicate health. Green being full and red being empty. Now at this point, I thought the game looked lacking. So I added impact frames. Hey yo, impact frames? Like the hits game Ultra Kill? Yes bro, just like the hits game Ultra Kill. But after I successfully implemented them, this is when I encountered it. The bug. You see, while doing some testing, I found out that if I use my melee attack while the enemy is using the magnet, after the impact frame, this happens. No big deal, right? Bugs show up all the time. I just have to find out what's causing it. I suspected that the forces are getting applied repeatedly while the time is frozen. But after testing it, I realized that's not the case. Then I tried to temporarily remove the time freeze. But the bug still happened, so I made the walls thicker, which hopefully would catch the player from flying out. But nope, it still does. Then I tried using an impulse instead of a force. which honestly I have no idea what the difference is between the two. But again, same results. So I made the walls even more thick, and I mean massively thick. But somehow the player was still flying out. And in the end I just applied for the band-aid solution and made it so when the player gets out of bounds, he gets teleported back in the box. But the bug still happened? What? How is that even possible? This makes no sense. Then it hits me. The camera is supposed to follow the enemy too. Maybe the enemy is the one getting shot out? So I tested it and made the camera follow the player only. And yes, the enemy is getting shot out. This must be the issue. But wait, this isn't right. The camera has a dead zone, meaning it's impossible for it to follow the enemy far away from the player, because there's a limit to how far it can get away from the player. So are they both getting shot out? And in the same test session, where the enemy got shot out, this happened. The player got shot out after reaching the place that the enemy was at before getting annihilated. What is going on, bro? At this point I was really confused, so I made the text UI that tells me the position of the camera, the player and the enemy. This will hopefully get me closer to finding the issue. This bug, a physics bug, somehow destroyed my UI. Oh hell no.